Hello friends, welcome to all. Myself Pradeep Yadav from College of Commerce, Rampur. We are discussing our TY BCom subject Mercantile Law, or which is known as a Business Regulatory Framework. In that we have started in the last few lecture videos. We are discussing the first chapter, Indian Contract Act 1872. In that we are discussing the several points according to the valid contracts, their capacity of the parties, consideration, all of that. Now we are reached to the point of the breach of contract. Breach of contract. So what is mean by breach of contract? We all know that whenever any contract is formed or whenever any contract is going to be constructed, at that time it has to be come to an end. Okay, so every contract had need to come and to an end. So in that, the termination of contract or the breach of contract is that how that contract is going to be comes to an end. That thing is going to be discussed in this video. So there are the server way or the various types from which we can going to be terminate or breach to our contract at to the end. So now we are discussing all that points by one. Into that, the first point is by performance. The most of the contract is going to be terminated or the breach by this act. So what is mean by performance? In that, whenever your parties is going to be perform or the make an action, what is the noted down in your contract, that is actually going to be considered as your by performance or the contract terminated by the performance. In that, whatever the promisee and promisor is making promise to each other, they both parties are make their course of action and just get the complete the contract, and after making that completion of that action, the contract is automatically going to be concluded or terminated. So now in that there is a two types. In that there is a two way to making a by performance of termination. Into that, first is your by actual performance. By actual performance. By actual performance. So what is in the actual performance? When the both of the parties is making performance actually by them, and both of the parties conclude and make their performance in the future course of action, or at the present time they both of the parties make and complete their performance. At that point the performance is completed and their contract is also considered as a terminated and completed. Then the second point is by attempt of performance. Attempt of performance. Attempt or performance. It may be known or considered as whenever the promisee is trying to make a contract, to make a course of action which is noted down in contract, but the promisor is just refuses to make that contract or made that action. In that sense, your contract is considered as completed or terminated because one of the parties is not agreed for that course of action. So in that sense, your performance or your contract is considered as a attempted to be performed, or it may be called as a tender performance. So in that case also your contract is considered as a terminated or completed. Okay, so this is the first point by which by performance your contract is going to be breached. Second is a by mutual agreement. By mutual agreement. By mutual agreement. When the both of the parties are ready to get complete or to get terminate the contract with the mutual performance by the mutual agreement without any performance. Without any performance, if the both of the parties is mutually agreed to terminate the contract or making some of the changes in the contract, that contract is considered as a discharge of contract by mutual agreement. In that also there are the several types of things are going to be considered into that. So now we are going to discuss by one. First thing in that, novation. No evasion means what? When the both of the parties are ready to cancel the existing contract and ready to make a new contract or renovate that contract with some of the new term or some of the new time basis. So in that sense, your original contract is going to be collapsed or terminated, and thereafter new contract is going to be happened or formed in that sense. So in that sense, the novation is just not mean that the renovate or just getting a new version of your contract. In that sense, your last contract is considered as a terminated or completed. Second is a alteration. We all know that whenever any contract is formed or it is prepared, at that time some of the basic thing or the basic goods or any service is included in your contract, and if in some of the reason both of the parties is ready to make alter into that thing or alter into that service or just wanted to make something new about that contract, so at that time both of the parties is making to alter that concept or that thing into the contract. At that sense, your contract is going to be altered with new thing and new condition. But we all know that whenever any alteration is formed into the contract, at that time your original contract is going to be lapsed and new type of contract is come into the force with that alteration. So in that sense also, with making an alteration, your contract is going to be discharged of the original contract and come into the force of the new contract. Then the third point is fixation. Fixation. What is fixation? In that whenever any one condition or the few of the condition is going to be changed, okay, few of the condition is going to be changed by the both of the parties, and both of the parties are ready to accept that changes and ready to agree with a new concept, then at that time that termination of the contract or the breach of the contract is considered as a fixation of the contract. So what happened, if I am giving to example A and B promised to be that A will pay 5 lakh for the purchasing of B's car of that on Monday at 12 o'clock. But some of the reason A is not getting free on a Monday. For that says A just called to B and just said that we just make that contract, but we just make that contract on Sunday at 12 o'clock. So in that condition, your contract is remain same, your thing is going to be remain same, but it is going to be changed with one or two conditions. So both of the parties is ready to do or making that changes into the contract. So in that sense, your original contract which is dated on Monday is going to be cancelled and new type of contract is going to be accepted which is held on a Sunday. Okay, so this is concept is called as a fixation. Then fourth point is a remission or waiver. In that sense, waiver means what? Whenever one of the party is not able to perform his duty due to any course of action, and in that sense he want to remit his all rights relating to the contract, and he shows his unperformable act during the contract, it is considered as a waiver or remission. So in that sense, one party who is unable to make or unable to get that performance, he just remit his all the duties and rights according to the contract and just left over the contract. In that sense also, your contract is considered as a breach or terminated, because one party is not ready to make his performance or his course of action due to any of the reasons. So in this case, another party is able to make an charge against him, but both of the parties agree upon the termination of the contract. So this is the second thing by the mutual agreement. Then the third point is discharge by the impossibility of performance. whenever any course of action by which your contract is unable to perform, or the whatever the action is noted down or whatever the consideration is noted down in contract is now unable to performable, it is become an impossible act. At that sense, your contract is going to be discharged or terminated by the impossibility of performance. So in that, whatever the circumstances happen or whatever the course of action is going to be happen, we will discuss to that. Into that, the first thing is destruction of subject matter. In any of the contract, whatever the main subject or the main thing is going to be destroyed, is going to be terminated by the any course of action, but now it is unable to perform, now it is unable to exchange or make to the contract. In that sense, automatically your contract is going to be terminated. I am giving an example from the last example, which is taken by the A and B, who is agreed to purchase a car of B for rupees 5 lakh, but due to the some of the reason, the car is going to be theft by someone, or the car is going to be destructed by the fire. So in that sense, that contract is going to be performed now, because the now his car is not in a condition to make a sale or purchase, because it is going to be destructed by the fire, or it is going to be terminated by the any of the things. So now your subject matter is a car, but now it is unable to perform. So in that sense, your contract is considered as a terminated because your subject matter is a discharged or destructed. Then second is change in law. You are making a contract which is based on a certain type of law, which is happened with a certain use of certain law, but due to the some of the changes with the contract of the government or the changes by the decision of the government, that law is going to be changed. That law is going to be changed. But now you can able to make that contract? No, you cannot make contract, because the base of the contract which is laid down on the law is now ultimately changed. In that sense, you have to be change your contract, or you have to be cancel your contract according to the law. If you are not able to make that contract according to the law, then you have to be change, then you have to be cancelled that one. Okay, the various time we see the whenever the notebandi is happen, when the GST is happen, or recently the when the Supreme Court is giving the judgment about the BS4 bikes, at that time when at a night the government is just cancelled the license about to selling the BS4 vehicle. So what happened, the any of the showroom which is taking the BS4 bikes is unable to sell that bike. So if you are making any type of contract, but now it is unable to perform because the government banned to registration that kind of bike, so now your contract or which will be happen, it is unable to perform due to the change of law. Then the third thing is start of war. Start of war. Okay, you are making a contract with a one countryman who is not with a citizen of India, but due to the some course of action, that country's man and our country is going to be started the war. So in that sense, you are able to perform that act? No, you are unable to perform that act, because both are the countries going to be war, and we cannot trade with the enemy, or we cannot perform any type of activity or the contract with our enemy country. In that sense, your contract is considered as a discharge automatically due to your war is begin. Then the fourth point is lapse of the capacity of the party. Whenever we note that there are the several types of parties in the contract, but in certain occasion that parties are unable or they just lost their capacity to perform that contract. In that sense your contract is considered as a discharge, because now the party who is the member in your contract is unable to perform that contract. If you can easily to say, if your contractman or any of the person who is the some of the statutory body holder, okay, he is in a certain governmental post and he make that contract according to that post, but now if the person is changed, now you are unable to perform that act because that person is using the statutory power of that post, and now it is unable to perform that act because he is just removed from that capacity or that power. Or another sense, if that person is going to be unsound mindedness, he is unable to perform that act, or it is drunken at that time, so in that sense your contract is also considered as a impossibility of contract. Then the fifth one and last one is natural disaster. Okay, whenever in any area where the contract is formed and due to the natural calamities and the natural disaster, whole thing is going to be disturbed. So in that sense you are able to perform that act? No, you get an excuse of the natural disaster. Okay, whenever any type of tsunami, any type of earthquake is happened, or any type of flood is coming to the any area, automatically and ultimately all the contract which is formed and which is not now unable to make the performance, it is ultimately considered as a discharge or terminated by its impossibility. So in that sense no any problem relating to the both of the parties, or it is not a mistake by the both of the parties, but it is a that happened with the course of natural calamities. So now this disaster is going to be discharge or destruct your contract. Then this is the discharge of the contract by the impossibility of performance. Then now we will move to the next point, that is the discharge by the impossibility of performance. Discharge by the impossibility of performance. Sorry, it is a discharge of contract by lapse of time. Fourth point is whenever any contract is formed and it is based on the time nature. Okay, when there is a essential to perform any action within the certain period of time, or whatever the consideration is observed in that contract, it limited with a certain type of time period, and if the both of the parties is unable to perform that act or unable to make that action within that period of time, then whenever that time period is going to be lapsed or going to be completed, your contract is considered as a discharge or discontinued. Because why? Both of the parties is not able to perform their activity within that time period. So whenever that in certain case of contract the time is completed, your contract is also considered as a discharge or destructed. Then the fifth point is discharge by operation of law. Discharge by operation of law. In a certain type of cases, your contract is going to be discharged by the various type of issues relating to your parties. If there is a certain thing is happened between the parties, your contract is going to be dismatter or going to be discharged due to the certain law, operational law. There is some kind, or there is some types or example in that. The first is death of parties. If in a contract any one of the parties is going to be the death, or it is not remain into the world, in that sense he is now unable to perform his act due to the operation of law. It is unable, you cannot claim against him to not making that action because it is going to be death. You can get the compensation according to the your whatever the regulation and rule you noted down in your contract. Otherwise you cannot claim to that person to make a fulfill of their contract with a course of action. Then the second thing is insolvency. If your contract is related with a financial term and due to the some of the reason one of the parties is going to be insolvent, is unable to making the payment to your contract, and he is going to be insolvent. It is declared by the court and the statutory body. So in that sense you cannot claim him to make and fulfill your contract because he is already declared as a insolvent person, and insolvent person is not legally bound in any type of financial term and financial condition because he is unable to perform his financial action course of action. Then the third is a unlawful change. Unlawful change in contract. We all know that the changes in a contract is not as much easy as we understand. We cannot make any changes without the consent of any of the parties, and with that, if any of the changes is made between the contract which is unlawful, in suppose in that party you taken as the party who is a not sound mind, or another thing you take the any consideration or alter the any consideration which is unlawful in that contract, so whole of the thing or whole of the changes is considered as unlawful, and due to that changes your whole contract is going to be cancelled and terminated due to the unlawful changes. So it is also one type of the operation of law, dischargement of contract by the operation of law. And last of this one is merger. This is the important thing. Whenever any person is making contract with one person, okay, he is making a contract, but after the some time of period he knew that, and they both of the parties is making some higher value of contract which is a more higher or more greater consideration according to the first contract. At that time your lower consideration contract is going to be merged into the higher consideration of the contract, because your new contract is just amalgamating your last contract. If I want to giving an example, then it is so easy. If A and B is agreed to hire B's house for rupees 15 lakh and for the 15 year. He hired his house for 15 years, but after the 5 years A agrees to buy the B's house for rupees sum of the amount. In that case the hiring contract is going to be merged into the selling of the contract or the buying of the house. Why? Because hiring and the selling and purchasing concept is higher than your hiring or landing to getting a landlord of your house. So in that sense your hiring contract is going to be merged into the purchasing of the contract. So in that sense both of the contract is merged with one new contract. The A and B is not liable to perform their first contract. Then here is the some type of course of action in the discharge of the contract by the operation of law. Then the sixth point is due to any of the reason both of the parties is unable to perform their duties, or any one of the parties is unable to perform his duty. In that sense your contract is considered as a breach, because your course of action is going to be breached or cancelled due to the unperformable of action. So this type of discharge is considered as a breach of contract. If any of the parties is refused to remain on his promise or refuse to make his course of action which is he already promised by the another person. In that sense, the person who is breaching to that and his opposite party is able to make a reclaim or settlement claim against him. Then the seventh point is accord or satisfaction. When both of the parties is ready to cancel the original contract but they are getting the new contract, but in that sense your consideration amount is lower than your first contract, which is lower or less value than your first contract, and they are just getting to sacrifice with their consideration. They are going to sacrifice with their consideration and they are ready to perform that type of contract, and that type of breach of contract is considered as a accord or satisfaction. In that sense, they are now ready to satisfy their type of consideration into their contract. Okay, now the next point is your when promisor is refused to perform when by the proposal or the refusal of the opportunity performed by the promisee. Whenever any type of promise which is made by the both of the parties, but after the some of the time is promisor is not ready to continue on that contract, and in that sense whenever the promisee is getting confirmation by the promisor to do the certain type of action or that course of action, in that sense your contract is refused or that performance is refused by the performer or your promisor. So your whole contract is considered as a discharge, because the one party is not able or he just refuses to make a contract. In that sense, your promisee is able to make a claim against the promisor who is not ready to do that performance or who refuses to do that contract. And the last is default of the promise, by the default of the promise. This is the last type, when the both of the parties perform their act but they are making some type of fault while making their promise. Okay, they just completed their performance or they are not able to perform that contract but they are making some type of fault. Okay, they just give you the amounts. If A and B is ready to give the certain type of goods, A agree to sell the one kind of bike to B, but in some of the reason they just not giving A is not giving bike as ready condition. He just revoke its engine from that bike, or he just break its head glass or their shock absorber. In that condition he make the default in that his contract, or he's making the mistake in that contract, and which is not acceptable by the another party. So in that sense it is considered as a default in your promise. So by all of these 9 points, any of the person or any of the contract is going to be discharged or terminated, or it is just considered as a completed. So this is the 9 points which is understand or must be considered by the everyone by whenever they was making or they are trying to complete or discharge or terminate to their contract. Okay, so we will rest here our lecture today. Okay, in the next lecture we will discuss the breach of the remedies to the breach of the contract. Thank you.